Dick. Oh my daughter, I ain't gonna respond to none of them bitch ass nigga no more. Tell them niggas fuck with me. Fuck all them bitch ass.
What happened between NBA YoungBoy and Future didn't begin the night the album dropped. It had been building for months, and once you see the timeline, everything starts to make a lot more sense. The tension can be traced back to February 8, 2026, when YoungBoy posted a tweet that immediately sent shockwaves through the rap community. His message was short, direct, and impossible to ignore. 15 psalms each. Loser never raps again. That wasn't just social media talk. It sounded like an open invitation to a high-stakes battle that instantly sparked debate across the internet. From that moment on, fans knew this wasn't an ordinary challenge, and the fallout would stretch far beyond one viral post. YoungBoy wasn't just testing the waters. He was making it clear he believed no artist alive could stand beside his catalog without getting exposed. It was pure confidence with zero hesitation, exactly the kind of statement that keeps hip-hop talking for weeks. Once Zeus TV shared the post with its massive audience, one question immediately took over social media. Who could actually face YoungBoy in a battle? The conversation exploded overnight. Fans threw out names like Gucci Mane, Lil Wayne, and Kodak Black, but one artist kept showing up more than anyone else. Based strictly on solo music and overall body of work, many people believed Future was the strongest possible opponent. Supporters argued that if you removed every feature, collaboration, and joint project from the equation and judged both artists only by what they created on their own, Future had the only catalog capable of matching YoungBoy's. This wasn't just a few fans making noise. It quickly became one of the most popular opinions circulating online because of Future's consistency and years of solo success. When YoungBoy noticed his replies filling up with Future comparisons, he didn't ignore the conversation, not even for a second. Instead, he immediately dismissed the idea with a blunt response that made his opinion crystal clear. From his perspective, Future wasn't even worthy of being included in that discussion. And that's where things started feeling much deeper than normal rap competition. YoungBoy wasn't just talking trash, he was publicly placing himself above Future in his own hierarchy. Then something happened that nobody expected. Future stayed completely silent. No tweets, no Instagram posts, no interviews, absolutely nothing. Depending on how you look at it, that silence may have landed harder than any diss record ever could. In YoungBoy's world, getting ignored after publicly throwing out a challenge isn't viewed as neutrality. It can easily be taken as disrespect. It sends the message that the other person doesn't even believe you're worth responding to. Several hip-hop commentators have suggested that this quiet reaction may have planted frustration that kept growing behind the scenes. That tension reportedly continued building for months before finally boiling over around the album's release. But to really understand why the situation escalated, you have to step back and look at the bigger picture many analysts have been discussing throughout the year. This wasn't just about two rappers exchanging indirect shots. It reflected a much larger divide inside today's rap industry. Future represents the traditional path: major label backing, industry relationships, mainstream radio support, and years of recognition from powerful figures in music. YoungBoy, on the other hand, built his career almost entirely outside that system. While Future's success has been strengthened by established industry networks, YoungBoy has relied on relentless output, a fiercely loyal fanbase, and an internet-first
strategy that allowed him to bypass many of the usual gatekeepers. That independent approach has become one of the biggest sources of pride in his career because it proves he can thrive without depending on the industry's approval. At the same time, it's also fueled ongoing frustration whenever he feels overlooked despite his accomplishments. YoungBoy has repeatedly expressed that many influential artists and executives seem to operate within exclusive circles that never fully embrace him. He's argued more than once that his streaming numbers, plaque count, and fan engagement deserve far greater respect than he believes he's received. Then came Future's latest album, which was promoted as nothing less than the album of the century. The project received enormous praise from critics, media outlets, and industry insiders almost immediately. Meanwhile, despite already earning an incredible 126 plaques, YoungBoy still appeared to feel like an outsider watching everyone else celebrate. That contrast seemed to strike a nerve. Whether Future intentionally disrespected him remains completely unproven, and there's no confirmed evidence suggesting he did. But by the time July 9th arrived, months of frustration appear to have found one very specific target. Before looking at what happened next, though, there's something important to understand about YoungBoy's personality. Public emotional reactions have never been unusual for him. Throughout his career, he's often treated social media like an emotional outlet where he speaks in the moment without filtering his thoughts. Whenever something frustrates him, he frequently turns to Instagram Live or posts immediately. He rarely waits before responding. That level of emotional honesty is unusual for someone with his level of fame. Over the years, it's created a long history of public outbursts that fans have watched unfold in real time. So when YoungBoy reacts online, people aren't usually seeing a calculated publicity move. They're seeing his immediate emotions. On the night everything unfolded, he remained active on Instagram while much of the world was asleep. Contrell Galden, better known as NBA YoungBoy, spent hours posting messages that quickly grabbed everyone's attention. These weren't carefully planned promotional posts. They were raw, emotional reactions shared directly with millions of followers. At one moment, he sounded fearless and completely certain of himself. Then, not long afterward, he'd soften his stance or appear to walk parts of it back, leaving fans trying to understand what had changed. Longtime supporters recognize the pattern immediately because they've seen it happen before. His social media has always reflected his emotions just as much as his music. Whether he's angry, frustrated, or vulnerable, those feelings often play out publicly in real time. That's not necessarily something to laugh at. It offers a glimpse into how he processes pressure. YoungBoy has openly admitted before, including during his conversation on Offset's livestream, that his emotions sometimes push him into saying things he later regrets. And once you understand that, the events that exploded on July 10th become much easier to understand. For anyone who had been following NBA YoungBoy closely, the warning signs had been there long before everything exploded. You just couldn't predict how quickly the entire situation would spiral. So let's rewind to where it all really kicked off. On the night of July 9th, only hours before his own project, The Real Me, was scheduled to arrive, YoungBoy jumped on Instagram Live with a message aimed at another artist releasing music that same evening. He never actually said Future's name, but you didn't have to read between the lines for very long. Future was the only major rapper dropping an album that night, making the target painfully obvious. Within minutes, the hip-hop world caught on. Major platforms like All Hip Hop, Hot 97, and Hot New Hip Hop quickly sped the clips across social media. Before long, millions of people had already watched the viral moment.
Everyone understood exactly what they were witnessing. YoungBoy appeared to be throwing direct shade at Future during one of the biggest release nights of his career. During the live session, he openly questioned whether Future's album would live up to the hype and warned fans not to get carried away. It was obvious he believed the project wouldn't live up to expectations. This wasn't a playful competition anymore. It immediately became one of the biggest talking points across hip-hop. The atmosphere turned tense almost instantly, and you could feel that something bigger was unfolding. YoungBoy spoke with raw emotion, holding nothing back while Future's album was being introduced to the world. Think about how unusual that timing really was. While Future was celebrating one of the biggest moments of his year, YoungBoy was flooding social media with emotional comments that felt completely unfiltered. Whether those words came from pure emotion, careful strategy, or a combination of both is something only YoungBoy truly knows. Either way, once those statements were made, the entire culture took notice. Suddenly, everyone was waiting to see what would happen next. Then came the twist nobody expected. The very next day, July 10th, the same day Future's album officially arrived, YoungBoy joined Offset during an Instagram Live session. And what happened during that conversation caught almost everyone completely off guard. Offset approached the situation with calmness and experience, bringing a completely different energy into the discussion. This wasn't gossip or entertainment anymore. Having experienced public controversies himself, Offset spoke from a place of maturity and understanding. He encouraged YoungBoy to slow down before allowing emotions to control his public reactions. It felt less like criticism and more like genuine advice from someone who had lived through similar situations. Surprisingly, YoungBoy actually took it in. Instead of arguing or becoming defensive, he listened carefully. For a moment, viewers saw a completely different side of him. He admitted that something had genuinely hurt him emotionally before everything unfolded. With unusual honesty, he explained that those emotions were what pushed him into the late-night Instagram outburst. He acknowledged that reacting immediately wasn't always the right decision. He admitted he needed to learn how to pause before letting emotions dictate his actions. Then came the moment that completely changed the conversation. YoungBoy publicly thanked Offset for stepping in and offering that perspective. And then he did something very few people expected. Right there on the live stream, he apologized directly to Future. His words sounded thoughtful, intentional, and sincere. He made it clear he didn't want to continue the conflict. Instead, he said he wanted to move forward and leave everything behind. That apology immediately became headline news for one simple reason. Public apologies have never really been part of YoungBoy's image. Watching him openly accept responsibility felt completely different from what fans were used to seeing. It was one of the rare moments where vulnerability replaced confrontation. In many ways, it showed that honest conversations can sometimes calm even the biggest conflicts. The entire hip-hop community watched in disbelief because this no longer looked like another ordinary online feud. It genuinely felt like the turning point. Moments like this are extremely rare in YoungBoy's career. He isn't known for sitting in front of a camera and publicly apologizing. That's exactly why the moment felt so authentic. Seeing him say those words beside Offset immediately became one of the biggest stories across hip-hop media. Every major outlet shared the clip within hours. Fans who had spent the previous night following the drama believed the feud had officially ended. Less than 24 hours after everything started, it looked like peace had finally won. It genuinely felt like the story was over.
But then everything changed all over again. Only a few hours later, on that very same day, YoungBoy returned to Instagram with a completely different attitude. This time, he tagged Future directly, and the tone couldn't have been more different. The calm, respectful version of YoungBoy from Offset's livestream had completely disappeared. Instead, he fired off harsh insults aimed directly at Future. He criticized Future's age, mocked the album, claimed it had already failed, and made it seem like the earlier apology no longer mattered. It became obvious that YoungBoy wasn't finished with the conflict after all. The accountability everyone had praised only hours earlier suddenly vanished. That dramatic reversal became the biggest story, not the original comments and not even the apology itself. The reaction across social media was enormous. People couldn't believe the same artist who had calmly admitted his emotions got the best of him was now launching an even stronger attack before the day had even ended. The contradiction was impossible to ignore. Fans everywhere started questioning whether anything YoungBoy says in emotional moments should be taken at face value. Was the apology genuine, or was it simply another chapter in an unpredictable emotional cycle? Once the dust finally settled, everyone wanted the same answer. How would Future respond? And this is where sticking to confirmed facts really matters. On July 10, while all the online drama was dominating headlines, Future chose a completely different approach. Rather than feeding the controversy, he stayed focused on his music. He released his latest solo album through free bands and Epic Records, allowing the project to speak for itself. The album contained 22 tracks without a single guest feature, putting the spotlight entirely on his own artistry. Instead of responding online, Future let the music do the talking. That decision reinforced the image many fans already had of him. While social media was consumed by conflict, Future remained locked in on his craft. After waiting 4 years for a new solo project, Future delivered what he described as one of his most personal albums yet. Rather than simply releasing another collection of songs, he presented it as an opportunity to show listeners who he really is beneath the public persona. The project wasn't just another addition to his catalog, it represented a statement about his growth as an artist. One particular record quickly generated discussion because many listeners believed it contained shots aimed at Nick Cannon. That alone showed Future was entering this release focused, confident, and fully aware of the conversation surrounding him. But here's the part that really stands out. Despite everything YoungBoy had said publicly, Future never directly responded to him. No interviews, no Instagram posts, no tweets, nothing. Instead, he quietly released a 22-track solo album with 0 features, while YoungBoy publicly predicted it would fail. Whether that silence was intentional or simply business as usual remains open to interpretation, but it became one of the most talked about aspects of the entire situation. Was Future completely dismissing YoungBoy by refusing to respond, or was his silence the strongest possible message that he simply considered himself above the drama? Nobody outside the two artists knows the real answer, but one thing became obvious the moment the album arrived. Fans immediately shifted their attention to the music, and the battle moved from social media into the court of public opinion. Now here's where the story takes another interesting turn. A lot of people have described this feud as deadly, but it's important to understand what they actually mean. There has never been any confirmed evidence of real-world threats connected to the situation. Instead, that description comes from how emotionally intense everything became. The direct online shots, the personal comments, the public tagging, and an apology that completely reversed course only hours later created an atmosphere that felt incredibly volatile. Add 2 of hip-hop's biggest stars with massive, fiercely loyal fan bases, and suddenly every new post feels like it could spark another. Headline: Hip-hop has seen rivalries begin exactly like this before. Public exchanges slowly build momentum online before eventually becoming something much bigger than anyone expected. Whenever artists of this level collide and neither side truly lets the tension fade away, people naturally begin asking how far things might actually go. The repeated personal remarks, age-related jokes, and continued attacks even after an apology made many fans feel this had already moved beyond ordinary rap competition. This didn't feel like business anymore. It felt personal in a way that kept everyone watching closely. One reason this rivalry attracted so much attention is because YoungBoy already has a long history of emotional public confrontations, and that reputation changes how every new situation is interpreted. Because of that history, every move carries more weight, every reaction feels more intense, and the possible consequences appear much larger than usual. At this point, the story isn't just about albums or social media posts. It's become one of the biggest ongoing conversations in hip-hop, with nobody knowing what the next chapter might look like. The entire situation also revealed something important about YoungBoy himself. After publicly apologizing, many expected him to step away from the conflict altogether. Instead, only hours later, he jumped right back into it. That dramatic shift immediately became one of the biggest talking points online. Fans no longer knew what to expect next, and in hip-hop, unpredictability often keeps a story alive much longer than the original disagreement itself. When emotions remain unresolved and millions of people are paying attention, the entire culture naturally leans in. History has shown again and again that moments like these can completely reshape the conversation. Another reason this story exploded was the unbelievable speed of today's media cycle. Within hours of YoungBoy's first post, the situation had already become headline news across the internet. YouTube creators analyzed every sentence, podcasts debated every possible interpretation, blogs broke down every post, Instagram pages reposted every reaction, and X was flooded with endless discussions as new updates appeared almost by the minute. Every platform covered the story, but not every version included the same context. Some reports focused entirely on the alleged diss, without pointing out that Future was never mentioned by name. Others highlighted the apology, while leaving out the fact that YoungBoy reversed course only a few hours later. Then there were outlets that centered almost exclusively on the second round of posts, while barely mentioning the emotional conversation with Offset that happened first. That's simply the reality of algorithm-driven media today. Speed almost always beats careful context. A diss generates attention, an apology creates another wave, but a diss, an apology, and then a complete reversal all happening within the same day turns into the kind of story every platform wants to amplify. No matter where people looked, the conversation was impossible to avoid. That's exactly the environment this entire feud unfolded in, fast-moving, emotionally charged, and constantly amplified by social media. Anyone who's followed hip-hop for years knows this pattern isn't entirely new. Competition has always been part of the culture's identity, from block party battles in the South Bronx during hip-hop's earliest days to the legendary East Coast versus West Coast era, and now today's social media-driven rivalries. Competition has consistently pushed artists to prove themselves. Many of the greatest moments in rap history were born from that competitive spirit. Think about Jay-Z and Nas. Their rivalry fueled classic albums like The Blueprint and God's Son, helping create one of the most respected competitive eras the genre has ever seen. More recently, Drake and Pusha T reminded everyone how quickly lyrical competition can dominate headlines around the world. Time after time, rivalry has challenged artists to raise their level creatively whenever the focus remained on the music. But history has also shown that once those battles become deeply personal instead of purely artistic,
conversation can shift into far more unpredictable territory. That's exactly the line everyone is watching now, wondering whether this situation will fade away or grow into something much bigger. Unlike the legendary rap rivalries of the past, this story hasn't been driven by polished diss records or carefully planned releases. Instead, it's unfolded through Instagram lives, emotional posts, and spontaneous reactions that appeared so quickly, even major media outlets struggle to keep the timeline straight. Everything happened in real time, with phone-recorded videos and impulsive messages replacing traditional lyrical battles. That non-stop pace has made the situation feel far more unpredictable than the average rap beef. Every new post changes the conversation within minutes, making it difficult for fans to separate emotion from strategy. At the center of it all are two completely different personalities. Future isn't just another rapper exchanging shots. He's one of the defining architects of modern Atlanta trap, whose influence stretches across an entire generation. YoungBoy Never Broke Again, meanwhile, represents almost the opposite path, an artist who built his success outside many of the industry's traditional systems while refusing to follow the usual rules. Beneath everything that's happened, there also appears to be a much deeper sense of frustration that has been building inside YoungBoy for a long time. That's why this confrontation feels larger than two artists arguing online.
It represents two completely different ideas about how success should be measured in today's music industry. This debate goes beyond deciding who won or lost a public disagreement. It raises bigger questions that many artists have quietly discussed for years. Does putting up incredible streaming numbers and building one of the most loyal fan bases in music automatically earn the same level of respect as industry recognition? Can complete independence eventually outweigh the influence of major labels and long-established relationships? Or does the traditional music business still decide whose legacy receives the most attention? In many ways, this entire situation reflects the larger changes happening throughout the industry right now. Fans aren't just watching a feud, they're watching two different philosophies collide in public. One side represents the established system, while the other represents an artist determined to prove he doesn't need it. At the heart of everything is a belief YoungBoy has expressed repeatedly over the years. He feels overlooked despite everything he's accomplished. From his perspective, years of success still haven't translated into the level of recognition he believes he has earned. That frustration has become one of the defining themes surrounding his public comments. Even when he says very little, many people believe that silence reflects the disappointment he's carried for years. And that's exactly why this story continues to resonate with so many fans. So where does everything go from here? On the other side of the conversation, Future has just delivered one of his biggest solo releases in years, a 22-track project with no guest features that puts the spotlight entirely on his own artistry. Rather than feeling like another routine album, the project presents itself as a deeply personal statement from one of trap music's most influential figures. Its release happened on the same night YoungBoy publicly predicted Future's momentum was about to collapse. Whether that timing was intentional or simply added fuel to an already growing controversy is something fans continue to debate. YoungBoy chose one of the biggest moments in Future's recent career to make his feelings known, placing both the artist and his supporters directly under the spotlight. Future's response, however, remained exactly the same as before: complete silence. No interviews, no online arguments, no public back and forth. He simply allowed the album to speak for itself. Whether that silence reflects confidence, strategy, or something else entirely remains open to interpretation.
Meanwhile, YoungBoy once again showed how quickly his emotions can shift in public. Within only a few hours, fans watched him move from confrontation to apology and then right back into conflict. Longtime followers know this emotional pattern isn't completely new, but it's never unfolded on a stage this large against someone with Future's reputation and influence. Now the entire hip-hop community is watching every move from both artists, wondering who, if anyone, will make the next move. Will Future eventually break his silence? Will YoungBoy continue pushing the situation even further? Or will this become another viral moment that slowly disappears as the next headline arrives? Right now, nobody can answer those questions with certainty. What is clear is that the conversation isn't over. Emotions are still running high, speculation continues to spread across social media, and every new post or song will be examined for hidden meaning. However this ultimately ends, the next chapter will likely be written through music, public statements, or silence itself. What do you think? Does this situation eventually cool down, or are we only seeing the beginning of a much bigger rivalry?